Hey everyone, it's Dorcas and welcome back to my channel. Now those that follow me on Instagram and social media know that I usually work with watercolors, but around a year and a half ago or so, I dabbled in gouache. I tried it for the first time and I really liked it. So I've been trying to work with it a little more, and I got some new gouache that I want to show you. First, let me take you through this sketchbook, which started out as my, watercolor doodling, whatever sketchbook, and eventually turned into my gouache sketchbook. So this is the first time that I tried gouache with my friend Jennifer's Reeves gouache, I believe, which is pretty student grade, but I did this page in watercolor and then this page in gouache just to see what the differences were, since I'd never played with it before, and I really liked it. Even though I've painted with gouache of higher quality, it was enough to intrigue me. I loved how opaque it was, that you can add white or light colors on top of dark colors. I still love my watercolors just because it looks like tissue paper and it's very transparent and the colors blend in very nicely, whereas with gouache not so much. You kind of just have to layer, and you can't layer too much or also start picking up the bottom color. But then, so that was with the Reeves, and then let's see, and then I got a batch of Holbein gouache. Now Holbein I absolutely love. It's so creamy and just a little bit goes a long way. They're super vibrant. So I've kind of been playing with that a little more. This is another piece that I did based off of a book on learning how to paint with gouache. These are just my own doodles. And then this was based off another book on folk art, which I'll link to all of these books below. Same folk art, and then I painted some backgrounds to then go back and add and sketch some more elements onto it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And then this piece is also based on that folk art book. So yeah, so these were mostly with Holbein. I also got some Winsor Newton gouache. I got two colors. I believe it was this flesh peachy color and this kind of blue-green color that I really love. But I want to show you a new gouache set that I got and kind of compare the different ones that I've tried. So without further ado, let's show you what I got. So like I mentioned, the first set that I got of gouache was Holbein brand, which they're super good and really popular. Everyone loves them with good reason because they're incredibly vibrant and just gorgeous. The only problem is that they're really pricey. So I got this set of 12 for about 27 bucks on Amazon, and they're really tiny. You'll see compared to the other brands how tiny they are. They're 5 milliliters, and again, a little bit goes a long way, but it makes it like they're so precious to me, so I don't use them that often. I feel like if I had a cheaper brand, that I would be more willing to practice and play and not worry about making mistakes. But they are amazing. If you notice, I am starting to really run low on some of my go-to colors, like this permanent deep green and this permanent yellow deep. So recently I bought just red, yellow, and blue to have my primaries, and then be able to mix all of my other colors just from these three. Ask me if I have. I'm kind of lazy when it comes to color mixing, but I was hoping that this would force me to. You'll see why this was a total fail. Now I also gotten a couple of these Winsor Newton designers gouache. Again, also really nice. I feel like they're just a tiny bit more streaky than my Holbein ones. Maybe it's just the amount of water I'm using, I'm not quite sure. But I do find that with the Holbein, I mean, one coat and it just covers the paper entirely. You know, a second coat will make it super, super matte. But, you know, I still really like these colors. So between the two, Holbein still gets my vote. And I also got this tube of white in Winsor Newton gouache because you really go through the white a lot. So I thought I'm gonna just invest in a big chunk of it. Now in terms of price, the 14 milliliter ones, don't totally remember how much I paid for them, but at least like it'll run you like maybe 12 bucks or so, 12 to 15 bucks. It depends on the color, it depends on, you know, what series they are. Some are series 1, series 2. I think series 1 is more expensive than series 2. I can't remember. But it's pricey. But these are, you know, larger than the Holbein ones for sure. Now I also have this other set of Holbein acrylic gouache. These are closer to acrylics than gouache. Maybe it's like in the middle. They act more like acrylics because once they dry, you can't kind of revive the color. Gouache, like watercolors, once it dries, you can just add more water and it'll, you know, bring the paint back to where you can use it. Whereas with acrylic gouache, because there's acrylic in it, then once it dries, it's set for life. But I got these 4 colors just to play with it, but again, I haven't totally used them too much, but the colors are super pretty. Okay, so remember when I said that I got these 3 primary colors in Holbein gouache? Because I figured, well, all you need are the 3 primaries and you can mix the entire rainbow out of these, right? Well, that was a wash. Because I've got this now. This is Arteza Gouache, and I'd heard great things about them, and the beautiful thing is that this box of 24 tubes cost me less than the 12 tiny tubes of Holbein. This one's around 22 bucks on Amazon, and I'm not mixing any colors anymore. I mean, maybe a few, but this has so many that I don't see why I would need to. So why don't we take a look? So first of all, I don't know if it's because I bought it online, but initially when I got this box, I thought that this was the back and that I had it, you know, upside down, but nope, that's the front. It just has the colors that are inside the box, as well as, you know, the symbols that are on each tube, which I'll take you through. So let's open up. Now this comes in, you know, double stacks of these little trays. And before I put the box away, I also want to note that for some, these shades are totally not what comes out of the tube. Well, we're gonna swatch it just so you can see the difference. But this is why you should always swatch any kind of paints that you get, because it'll look completely different out of the tube. It'll look completely different once it's, you know, wet on the paper, and then once it dries. Gouache is known to dry lighter than how it's applied. Okay, so these are, you know, 12 milliliter tubes, and they look a little used because I already squeezed some onto my palette, but you know, just a tiny bit. So let me see, there was one color that I knew I did not want in my palette, which is peach red, so you can see how full they are. Now compared to the Holbein, here you go. See? Oh my goodness, Holbein is so tiny. But these are pretty full up. It comes in these little aluminum tubes, and on each tube, let's get this out of the way. And in each tube, there's symbols. So the little plus signs mean how light fast it is. You know, if it'll fade over time. Then the little box just symbolizes the transparency of it, you know, versus this is pretty transparent. And then if it's filled in, then it'd be more opaque, so you can't see through the paint once it's dry. This part is the pigment number. I've had these little swatch cards, and I have a space for the pigment number. Honestly, I guess if you were trying to mix your own, if you want to know how pure color is, you know, if it uses more than one pigment, maybe it helps when you're color mixing, so you know which colors might yield less muddy results. And yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna swatch these out really quickly. I mean, really, really quickly, so hang on. Okay, so our colors are all dry now, and you can see that a lot of the darker tones are much more opaque, which makes sense. The sap green, maybe I added a little too much water because it also looks streaky, but I'm sure a second coat would totally fix that and make it just as opaque as the other greens and blues. This yellow ochre is also very opaque compared to the other yellow and orange. And I forgot to mention this, that even though it's a box of 24 gouache colors, there are two whites. One is a titanium white and one is just white. Not exactly sure what the difference is. Maybe this one's a little more opaque, but again, it could be based off of how much water I used in my paint. But they're both the same pigment, white 6, and they're both, you know, have the 3+ sign for light fastness. So not quite sure. Maybe more research is needed there. But yeah, I feel like most of these with a second coat would be totally opaque. Note that this peach red, definitely not my favorite. Probably I'm never going to use it. Who knows? It's super bright and just completely seems off, you know, the rest of the palette, which I really like. I like that there's a good amount of reds and yellows and blues and greens, but this peach red just seems totally like from left field. Maybe if they created a set of, you know, fluorescent colors, that would totally mix in, but I'm not adding that to my travel palette. I'm not really into that bright red, or which is, it looks more pink, like fluorescent pink. And speaking on travel palettes, just a few notes that I am able to take my gouache along with me. I know some people say that, you know, it flakes or it doesn't travel well, so these are some of the solutions that I found. I got these little tiny containers, these little vials, that I would squeeze a little bit of my gouache into, and then it stays moist for a very long time. I just kind of spritz it with water. This one is dry because I haven't used it in a long time, but you know, I just spritz it with some water from time to time just to make sure it doesn't get too dry. And then once it does, I just add a little more water and like mix my brush in there to wake those colors up. And then, you know, in this case, I attach some magnets, this is magnet tape. I just attach it to the bottom of my vials, and I put them all in a little tin can along with a tiny little palette. I also have these plastic palettes. This is usually the one that I use for my gouache. And I keep it in this bag because the paint does flake off, but this kind of contains it. And I could always just add, you know, those flakes back into any of these wells and spritz it with some water, and then they're good to go. But I like these because it has all these wells so that I can mix colors. I can, you know, mix the batch of red and a batch of yellow, and then I can grab from both of those and create a whole new color in a different well. I try to keep my warm colors on one side and my cool colors on this side. And then when I'm done, I just pop it back in here, and I usually keep it, you know, right side up in my drawer, just so that it's out of the way, but still, you know, contained in this bag. And recently I got this. I got two actually. I got these airtight palettes that supposedly are good for keeping your paints dry for a long time. It's huge though. This one is much, you know, bigger. This is definitely not travel size. So this will probably just stay at my desk, and I'll link to all these things below. And this one has 33 wells, so it fits all of my new Arteza colors, which comes up to here, and then my 2 Winsor Newton colors, and those 3 Holbeins that I'm supposedly gonna mix all of these colors and then some out of. Probably not gonna happen. But it has this little mixing area, and it has some more mixing areas here. And then it has this rubber ring all around it, so that then when I close it up, it kind of remains airtight. It's not airtight from well to well, I don't believe. I haven't tried it, but pretty sure it's not. But it's definitely airtight, you know, it's not gonna spill out of the container. And I like how the wells are pretty big, so I can use even my biggest brush and grab a lot of color, and it's not gonna ruin my brush tips. And this is where I had initially, you know, squeezed out those first bits of gouache. Notice how the tubes still look pretty full, and this is how much gouache I was able to squeeze out of them. But I like to just have them out already so that I'm not like constantly squeezing colors out, and you know, it's just more accessible to me. I also got this little storage palette that's also leak-proof and airtight. I filled it up. It has 24 wells, so it's just enough for all of my Arteza colors, minus that bright peach red that I was not going to use. So I have a little extra well here for, I don't know, maybe if I mix another color. I do find that this one keeps the paints wetter than the other one, which was a Meeden airtight palette. But I wish, you know, you can't have everything, because this one doesn't have any space on which to mix your colors. But that's totally fine, because I have, you know, quite a few of these tiny palettes that I could just bring along with me, or since I'm always carrying my watercolor palettes around, I can just mix it on one of those. Also, the pink one that I just showed you is a Newton palette, and I have quite a few other Newton palettes for my watercolors, which I absolutely love. You know, these are the ones that I've gotten. I also had a smaller one which I gave to one of my students, which was around this size, and so it has plenty of space to mix colors. This one was one I was carrying around for a while, but then it got way too overwhelming because it had way too many colors. So I took all of my Daniel Smith watercolors, and I know we're totally getting off track here because this is supposed to be about gouache, but quick tangent. So this is what I'm carrying now. So if I'm carrying my gouache, I can just mix them here if I need to, and you know, wipe it off. Or I also have, you know, palette paper that I can use as well. Another note about this storage container is that it brings a little scraping tool on the side, so then if there's any paint that, you know, is still left over, I can just scrape it out with this little tool that slips out somehow from the side of the box. And I mean, ultimately I really love that it's so much more portable than the other one. So now I'm going to paint something really simple and quick in my gouache sketchbook, just to, you know, get to finally play with this Arteza gouache that I've been waiting for, because I needed to film this video first. So here we go. Okay, so there we have my quick little gouache sketch, and as you could see, the background took a couple of coats to get it all flat. I feel like, let's see, this only took one coat. I can't remember though, this was with the Holbein. So, you know, it's not as, the coverage isn't as great, but I mean, it still looks good. It's still very, very bright. And the nice thing is that they're so cheap. I won't mind, you know, playing with them, really getting to learn how to paint with gouache. The only note is that if you do run out, you'd have to buy a whole new set. Arteza does not sell their tubes separately, so you'd have to buy a whole nother box of 24 gouache colors, or there's an even bigger one, I think it's 60 colors. And so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little review and paint session. Please give it a thumbs up if you'd like this video and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!